Living in Appalachia is rough. We deal with violence, gun violence, assault, sexual assault, and rape. And these are things that may be talked about within our podcast. And we just want to let you know, viewer and listener discretion is advised. We live in some of the oldest mountains in the world.
Stolen land, stolen again to create the extraction state.
We are real people talking about real things in a real way.
This is Appalachian Living.
Welcome to Appalachian Living. This is our, I don't know how many episodes,
11.
but I am so excited about this one. I'm
special.
so excited because I met you when I was working for Cucumber, and we were supposed to get together in the fall. And a couple years ago, I didn't get to meet you, and
Who
I
is
was
she?
bummed. Her name. I was trying to tease her a little bit, but her name is Crystal Good. And she is amazing. And I did not know how close you two were until me and Elise started talking about it. And I was like, I've worked with her. And she's like, I know her. So how do you two know each other?
Well, I just want to say, one of the beautiful things about Appalachian life and connection is that it is a core to our culture. We need to know who you are, who are your people, where are you from, and then we make a quick judgment on you.
Where do you go to church?
Yeah, and
So
then
true.
who your people, who you come through the door with is, whoever you're that plus one for. I mean, that could go on for, we're trying to generationally connect ourselves always. And I think what's very special about knowing Elise and meeting her and working on projects with her is that now we have seen some life. It happens.
It happens.
Now we have some life underneath our friendship. Decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we can start to see, you know what I mean, how relationships carry on through our children, through our work, through different things. But that's a long story. I just was really been thinking about our kinship culture here and how important that is. And so Elise came to me through another activist. I was a poet and working on some creative elements, and she stepped in and helped with that and has just been a lifelong friend since. And I think what's really beautiful at this stage of friendship is that our friends are our memory keepers.
Yes.
They remember us at a certain point. They've seen, like, I knew Elise before she was a lawyer. I knew when she was trying to pass the bar.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like,
It took me 4 times, for folks who don't know, it took me 4 times to pass the West Virginia bar exam, and the people who loved and cared about me were like, keep trying. And I was like, I don't think I'm meant to be a lawyer here. And
but keep trying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just watching her growth as a mother and a wife, and
I became a mom in the time we've known each other.
Yeah. So long history there, and I am so tickled because now I'm in Princeton, West Virginia, and I have a friend down here. I have 2 now.
So close.
No, well, I'm not as close. It took me an hour and a half to get here.
shit.
Yeah. I'm more closer. I'm in Wyoming County.
But
I
we
am.
had some good spread here because we've got Summers
did.
County,
Yeah, but
Mercer, and
Southern
Wyoming.
West Virginia, it's an hour to get anywhere. I've just made peace
Anywhere.
with it.
It really is.
You know?
True.
For us, we are an hour to any Walmart.
So
we
one of
have
Crystal's
little
gifts
stores.
truly is her poetry.
Well,
And
we shared the one on the social media,
Yes.
the one that
Oh,
you
thank
did
you.
at the event.
And that's how I was introduced to her. The first thing I knew about Crystal was hearing a poem.
The boom boom.
And as a poet, as someone who uses words to express myself, and I did that as a kid. If you all go to my home where I grew up, in my bedroom, I wrote on my walls.
Oh.
When I was 14 years old, I asked my mom and dad if I could write poems and things on my walls. And in their very, smart way, they said, as long as when we walk by, we can't see it. So that left me 2 walls, right? I had 2 walls that I could use. And you can see the evolution of me as a person. My
That's so
friends
cool.
would come up. It's like a yearbook.
Yeah.
And it carries on into my college
That's
years.
cool.
So it's about, 8 years of writing and,
That's beautiful.
and evolution.
Is it still there?
It is, and they plan on keeping it, and I think it's great. But that is the tie I had with you. I saw the artist in you, and I saw a woman who spoke about Appalachia in a way that not only represented me as a young woman growing up here, but also said things that nobody said out loud with a little sass.
A little sass. And you know what? It tickles me because I really am a gateway drug into your Appalachian.
Hallelujah,
you know what I mean? Like into your Appalachian identity. And I'm okay with that because people, especially young women at college age and, you know, that 17 plus, they find my poetry over the years and something connects with them and ignites with them, and then they want to create something that's what it's all about. You know what I mean?
Wonderful.
Like, I am a little, it's interesting now to be at this stage of my creativity in my life and think about the responsibility of those poems. And when I was reading, because we just were all at the Hazel Dickens Festival, first annual here in Princeton last weekend.
It's
it was
a Black
beautiful.
Lung benefit.
Black Lung benefit. And I was reading Boom Boom, which I've read 1,000 times. I still don't have it memorized. I still got a whole
I've
piece
got
of
parts
paper.
of it memorized.
I don't understand, but anyway, you know, it is what it is. So I'm reading the poem, and it hits me. The hook of this poem is, you know, there ain't no gold in West Virginia.
That's
just
what part
black
hits me.
coal. And it's really kind of like, fuck you, there ain't shit here. You know what I mean? Like, I can't do shit here, da 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 da. But fast forward to this, Crystal, and in the middle of the poem was when an idea came to me. I'm like there at the festival. You know what I mean? And it was that I'm doing so much work with T&T Organics Farm, Jason Tart's farm. Yes, he's my sweetheart. And
we will talk about that at some point.
the name of his brand is Appalachian Gold.
Oh, wow.
The irony in that is thick.
It
girl.
hit me standing there, right? Like the whole poem is about like
There ain't no
gold. I'm sassy, right? Like da 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 da. And then here comes.
And that was the name of it before he met you. Is that
He doesn't know anything about Crystal the Poet when he met me. He had no idea. We went to an event and he was like, "Whoa, what's going on
so?
here?"
The name Appalachian Gold didn't come from that.
We didn't even know each other.
That is amazing.
No,
I
but
love that.
My poem, like if you ask, you know, my little cult following, you know, they will remember Boom Boom, and there ain't no gold. There's just black coal. And then along comes this other storyline that's playing out in my life, and the theme to it is Appalachian gold. And it's all about the fruit that we can produce, from pears to cherries to peaches
That's
to
the
apples
real gold.
to the honey that we can produce,
Which is actually gold.
which is actually gold,
Liquid gold.
to the literal water that runs down his farm. Like, for a girl that been through a water crisis, and I even tweeted this, it was hilarious to me. I tweeted during the West Virginia water crisis, which was such an interesting time to be on social media. You know, it was like, Lord, just send me a man with his own water source. And then this man takes
a man with a
he
well.
takes me walking. No, this is a creek. I mean, not a creek, but it's the waterfall. Like, it's not just a water source. It's like, here's fresh water coming out of the mountain here. Here's fresh water coming out of the mountain here. So I'm like, what? Because I think so much, and you know this too, Elise, in the environmental movement, we have to make everything so terrible. And one of the things, yes, we were in water crisis in many cities in West Virginia, and many small towns, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done there, but we are sitting in an abundance of water. These mountains are sponges. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's kind of disorienting to have to live in both these spaces. But I think that's what's unique about, you know, being an Appalachian and being a West Virginian, is that you are always holding two things that are, you know what I mean? And you have to have the capacity to kind of, you know, navigate these things. And unfortunately, it'll drive you a little crazy.
Well, almost heaven, nearly hell.
Yeah.
That's what I was
is the name
thinking.
of our podcast for a reason. And it is, we stand in between paradise and hell and toxicity and all of these things, and our bodies exist in these spaces, our relationships exist in these spaces. I'm so excited to hear you talk about your evolution and change and how you interpret your poetry, because to be there in that moment, because you sat down and there was kind of a moment you were like, I had so much anger when I was writing that poem, and now I feel different. I feel differently inside. And I talk a little bit on our podcast about having been around long enough now to know you've seen some things, and you understand
You've seen the cycles,
patterns, exactly, the repeating things, and then the things that change. And what you're showing me, what I'm learning in this moment, the cycles are negative, the change is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
The new growth that comes from it is absolutely
But you have to accept
beautiful.
it. You have to see it. And sometimes I think, I want to encourage people to take your rest. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, don't burn yourself out. Nobody needs to be martyred. And I think that's kind of like literally what we are programmed. I mean, it's like, what is our one attribute? Wait a minute. As West Virginians, we have two attributes. One, it's so pretty. And two, we work hard.
Yep.
And yet we work hard, yet we're the fattest, the poorest, all of those statistical things that come out. And it's really it's a complex identity. It's all right. It's a complex identity that we all share, and I don't think that we really realize how much we are all navigating. You know what I mean? Like, how do we wake up every day as West Virginians, right? And recognize, we're the fattest, we're the poorest, we've got the drug overdose. I mean, we've got all these terrible things that the news is constantly barking at us. Yet we drive from point A to point B in the most magical force.
Without doubt. My commute.
Completely suspended into a whole nother world. You know what I mean? And I think that, the next phase of my life is certainly more connected to the earth than I maybe have been before. And also really, really happy that now the environmental movement and conversation has moved into a black space, even in West Virginia. Because, it is our earth. It is our clean water. The environmental movement is not just about like white people or, you know what I mean? Like, it is complex, but it is our earth. And one thing, I don't know why, but since I've been a little girl, I just thought West Virginia was mine. I just thought it was mine,
It is ours.
And
the
it
land
is ours.
The land is ours until it's not.
Where did you grow up, Kristen?
I grew up in St. Albans, West Virginia. My mom lived in St. Albans, one end of the valley, and my dad lived in Rand, West Virginia. So, I think I got a car like at 15. I wasn't supposed to have one, but my mom found a good deal and she bought it, and it was a stick. And my mom worked shift work, so you don't think I'm driving that car
All the time.
So, but I was pretty safe. I'd drive it from pretty safe from St. Albans to Rand. It's all interstate, 60 and 64.
safe.
It's good. It's all interstate. But that's so St. Albans is my hometown, but Rand's a big part of me too.
That's a chemical valley.
Yeah, that's why my
was
book
gonna
is
say,
called
that's
Valley
your
Girl,
intro, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you know?
No, that's not how I know Rusty Williams. I know Rusty Williams from Capital Work.
Activism.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And gosh, I mean, there's no better human than Rusty Williams, and I'm so honored and blessed to have him as a friend and counsel, and the way to be able to watch how his political mind has evolved.
The way he words things is amazing. I
I've
love
always
it.
called him my political soulmate. I've always said that. Like, Rusty is kind of the person I want to be as
Yeah.
a lobbyist and as an activist. Like, I look up to him like, I want to say it just like you say it. How do you say things like that,
And such just good conscience, just good constitution of a human being. And Rusty and I have some wild stories. That time Mike Tyson flew us to L.A. Things that we just look at each other like, did that really happen? Like,
But I think that is the gold in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Is folks like you and
Yeah.
Rusty and us. And I feel like when I ran I never ran as a candidate for the Mountain Party, but one of the things I always talked about when I was working with them is our real true resources are people.
yeah,
They are.
Because the rest of these resources are finite or, vulnerable, but our people are extra special in so many ways. And our work ethic, of course, is what we're known for, but our resilience and our ability to cut through the bullshit is a big part of that. Your work does that.
Well, thank you.
And you've evolved from angry poet to
I'm still angry.
what is your work now?
Well, when divine inspiration strikes you, as it did during the Hazel Festival, and I had to rethink this poem that I read 1,000,000 times. It is my signature. It's in the Appalachian poetry canon. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yes.
boom, boom, right?
They
It's about a
teach it in
stripper.
college classes.
Yeah, it's about a stripper and a strip mine. And I thought, how am I going to get out of this? Right?
In this box.
Because to move poetry and song and art, when you're dealing with anger or you're dealing with pain, you know what I mean? That's kind of an emotion that is, I don't want to say easy to evoke, but you can evoke it. When you're trying to say, hey, the world around you may look this way, but there is a better way. There is a way out. There is a purpose, right? That's a much harder lift.
Inspiration is harder than inciting anger.
We need a little bit of misery loves company when we're going through these process, but to start to reframe things in the positive sense, that is not part of kind of how we are wired. And I think that's where we have to start to now, there's not a whole lot of good things that are happening with this new administration and all that. But one thing, I think we talked about this at the festival because we were all kind of sitting around the grass, that, we were sitting in the grass and we were talking about
administration. There's not a lot of good, but
we're finding good
in how we talk about change.
But that now we can see people for who they are.
Yes.
And that's on both sides of the fence, right? That's our comrades, and we have to make a decision. You know what? I might not like you, but we're going to pull together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hold my tongue a little bit more. Right? Or I'm going to try to find remedy or whatever it is.
Because we have a common cause.
Because we have a common cause, and I think we need to develop that muscle within ourselves. So it's not always just us and them. And we take that us and them. It's called a hillbilly shootout. We take that us and them to inside of our movements, inside of our things, because we want to win. I want to win too. I want to feel what that feels like.
And my idea is the best.
Yeah.
And I want to just say, I want to kind of describe a hillbilly shootout. Imagine standing with your backs against each other and looking out at the world, and everybody has their gun and you've got each other's backs. And then somebody says something that pisses somebody off, and they turn around and look at him and they point the gun at them. And somebody turns around and says, don't point the gun at him. You should be pointing it at them. And somebody says, well, don't point the gun at them. And the next thing you know, we're all pointing the guns at each other.
It's metaphorical guns.
It is metaphorical
hillbillies too.
Hillbillies as well. But when we say hillbilly shootout, we need people to understand that, like, this is a pattern.
It's a pattern
that we've seen, and we identify it within our circles. And we just talked about this in the last podcast about breaking that cycle.
And it can be small things. You know what I mean? Like, there are people that I work with and I don't really particularly enjoy, or maybe they pissed me off 10 years ago, or whatever the circumstance is. But now more than ever, if we can use the way the world is to truly start to see people for who they are, even the people that are scared. And I think that's something that we don't really process, right? Like, some people are just scared and they're adopting onto this identity because they don't know what else to do. We are in a crisis of identity. When West Virginia decided to start to talk about, coal's going away, and we had Hillary Clinton and we had all that stuff, I've been very clear, across conversations, that you can't just take somebody's identity away and not replace it with something. So they're not telling us that we're Appalachian gold.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're just saying, oh, we're going to lose this thing. We're going to lose coal. We're going to do, you know what I mean? It's so interesting to me, right? And the thing about West Virginia that I love so much is that we are not cool. Like, let's just be who we are.
So true.
Right? Like that's what makes a person. That's what makes a person cool, is that they are who they are. And so, in politics and everything, it's always like, well, what's Michigan doing? You know what they did in Kentucky? Do you know what they did in North Carolina? Do you know what? No. What did our grandparents do? Right. What did they do 2, 3, 4 generations? Today, let me tell you, I run this little paper, Black by God, and sometimes when I'm getting a little bit frustrated, I will go into the archive of the old black newspapers of West Virginia. And it never fails that I find a nugget of something that I need in my world today that was printed in 1881.
So a big part of our first couple of podcasts, we talk about, why are we having this same conversation 100 years later? There's a quote from Mother Jones. So what you do with your black newspapers, I do with Mother Jones. I go back and thumb through some history and pull a quote. And it's like a sermon generator, right? It's like, don't forget that. And the fact that you have mirrored exactly what we've discussed about finding the inspiration, and how did they handle it? Because nothing has changed. The words are different. And the quote about, and we need to pull it up and I'll read it here in a second, about guns and morphia, that the injustice drives the guns, which drives the fight, and when the fight's done and all of that levels out, you still go to the morphia. in 1921.
Yeah, I mean, we really have to pay attention to these cycles. Like,
It's a cycle.
hello,
Yes, Yeah. ma'am.
And well, I just got to say this because I was in a conversation with some wonderful Appalachian women at a writers' retreat, and we were talking about Mother Jones, and we were like, she is a witch. Clearly, she's an She's a witch.
Without
She wore
doubt.
black. Nobody knows where she was born or where she was born. She just appeared, and then she disappeared. Right? Like,
And would conjure and move.
and you know, it's the same thing with
and
Sojourner
speak.
Truth. We do not look for our inspiration and next steps or our sermon, right, in these women. Right, we in the movement. How did they do it? There's no that they didn't have cell phones. They had mental telepathy. They had energy. They had
Instinct,
they had
intuition.
they had all that, and that's what we as women are closer to. And I feel like that's what I'm, whatever this transition is that I'm being called through or going through, or you know what I mean. And I feel a little like, oh, I'm not really like participating the way that I was, but I also realize I am kind of step back a little bit and looking at a bigger picture and really trying to figure out how in the hell do we center the children and community, because that's it. That's you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
That's if we're not centering our children and our sense of community, which does not need to be a festival. It can literally be the 10 people around. It could be your neighbor. You know what I mean? We've got to get back to those quote unquote roots. And I really think that what has happened in our world is integration. Changed everything. We are the integration generation. We are the first generation in American history to be fully
integrated.
And I think that we are hanging on. You know what I mean? Like, we're hanging on to the memory of that. Our kids, completely different. They had Barack Obama as a president. They've been, you know what I mean? Like,
I talk about this a lot, and I say we don't have to convince them of things, right? Like, we have a foot in this space of the blissful days, and then when everything started going to hell, and then coming into an awareness that global warming, climate change, the atmosphere is being torn up by hairspray.
Right.
We had learned all of those things. This new generation, they just know.
Yeah.
They know drought.
Yeah.
They know climate change. They understand things in a different way. And one of my favorite parts of this, and as much as I hate to say that, that causes real tension within me, is these active shooter drills that they've had to do for decades.
Yeah.
We've militarized these kids in a way that they don't even understand. They don't understand it, and we don't understand it. But there's a grit there that is different. We had to navigate the awareness of these things coming about. These kids didn't.
Right.
They've had to be ironized and
separated
and
because of technology and COVID. You know what I mean? Like, I think that some of the simplest things for your listeners and other people that you can do is just gather people.
Yes.
You don't have to. You just gather people, feed them.
Just a few.
Old school cookout
Around the kitchen
Always
table.
feed
You know
your
what I mean?
people.
We always talk about, women around the kitchen table is the ones that are making the changes and making the differences. And it's because this is where the ideas come. This is where the energy comes. And this is where we're like, you know what?
And we have
we're
to really
sick of
where
this.
we train the youth. This is where we center our kids.
We have to
around
create
the values.
spaces for them. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, this is not rocket science. You know what I mean? It's less community building and, how do we take care of each other? But I do think that we are certainly, if we can look back 100 years and look where we are today and see those similarities, but also look to the Mother Jones, look to the Sojourner Truth, look to, the folks that have led the way before, but look at them differently, because you have to remember history is going to record it how it wants. And I'm looking for the mystic. You know what I mean? I'm looking for how can I get some guidance in how I tap into that intuition, right? Because it's there. I mean,
absolutely.
Mother Jones is our ancestor, and if we can, you know what I mean. Sojourner Truth is our ancestor. You know what I mean. And if we can, tap into them.
Do you forage?
I'd love to.
Okay.
We need to take her.
We need to take you foraging, because that's something that Lindsay and I have in common. And we forage for mushrooms. I forage for mushrooms primarily in the spring.
I need ghost pipe.
I need ghost pipe too.
Okay.
We need to find some ghost pipe, because we're all going to do the same thing with it. And I got plenty of moonshine to put it in.
I know where some ghost pipe is.
All right, let's get the ghost pipe going. But I've done a lot of inner thought about ancestors in the woods, and spent a lot of time talking to the ancestors and calling on the ancestors, and not just the ancestors I know, but the energy that exists in these hills that you still feel.
It's so powerful.
This land is so old.
potent. It's all there.
There are so many
And that
ancestors
knowledge is
from this
beautiful.
land.
And that is a survival knowledge, right? That
How do we
is-
think, like, clearly the plants can talk, okay? Because how else did everybody figure out, you know what I mean? Like, which was, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but there's magic in the mountains. And that's what I
There
think,
is.
like, when people,
Girl, let's go down the rabbit hole.
I'm ready. When people are like, I'm so rah-rah West Virginia, and I have been for a long time, I think people have to realize that I love the land. And the land, these are the grandmothers of the planet.
Yes.
And so if you can sit in this land, you can learn something. And also for me, having a troubled childhood, some disconnection from my mother and, maternal things, Mountain Mama became my mama. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. And when we were at the Hazel Dickens Festival, can you believe that we heard the Carpenter Ants play a Bill Withers unreleased song that his wife gave them permission to,
Goosebumps all
called
over.
Mountain Mama? And it was like, I'm coming home, Mountain Mama. I did good, Mountain Mama. And there's a wonderful story. The very first cookbook written by a black woman in the late 1800s, mid 1800s, Melinda Russell, I believe is her name. That first cookbook was written by a black Appalachian woman. Let me tell you how we know this. There's a wonderful writer, I have her book over here, called Ronnie Lundy. She wrote a book called Victuals, right? A lot of people know that. Ronnie was reading this cookbook, this old cookbook, the first published cookbook by a black woman in America. And she said, I think she's from Appalachia. And I thought, oh, well, must be ingredients. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
she's
Morels,
making some
ramps, something
whatever
like
she's
that.
got. She's got Appalachian ingredients in there. No. Ronnie Lundy figured out that the very first cookbook written by a black woman in America was a black Appalachian woman, because she wrote the book because she was living up north, like Boston or something like that, and she wanted to go home. And Ronnie said, who the
was a
hell
love
wants
letter.
to go home? But Appalachian people must go home. You know what I mean? At some point.
Calls you.
We're
It
going to go
calls
home.
you.
And then she started doing the research. And yes, this woman was writing books so she could come home to the hills of Tennessee. And I think that's the thing. Is like what calls us. Sometimes, I get mixed up in this political narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like we think that that's what's calling us. But there's ancient wisdom here.
Yes.
It's like, my God, Cole didn't actually consent to being anybody's friend. Cole just
Can you say that again louder for the folks in the back?
well, yeah, I mean, Cole did not agree to be anybody's friend. Everybody said, "You're our friend," and
Cole's like, says who?
says who, right? And I think that way too. It's like, I'm a tree hugger, but I always say, "Hey, Mr. Tree, Mr. All right, hugging a little
That reminds me of a story when I was in second grade,
Mm-hmm.
and it was me and two other girls, and how girls were petty, and we got into a little fight on the school bus in the morning, and by lunchtime we were walking in lines, and we were in different classes, but we walked right next to each other, and she goes, "We're good, we're friends now," and I'm like, "Bitch, who said?" I was not a part of this. Y'all were in the same class, and y'all said
Y'all
that.
figured it
I'm
out.
still mad. I'm still mad.
It's probably one
So what
because you're a
happened by the
Capricorn.
end of the day? What happened by the end of the day?
We were fine on the way
Okay,
home.
Okay.
But I was.
But you needed your consent, right?
Yeah, but don't come and tell me. Yeah, I'm one of those people. You tell me. You can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me that I'm not going to do something. Because come hell or high water, I'm going to do it.
Libra, Capricorn,
Aries.
Y'all get shit done.
Yes.
Y'all on my team.
And I'm a Capricorn.
My husband's an Aries.
Moon and a Scorpio rising.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
you
I
are
have
perfect
a lot,
to be a lawyer
Yes,
because you can
ma'am.
keep all the secrets.
All of them. My thick runs deep. Is all I'm going to say. But I also feel like all of my good girlfriends are Libras or Capricorns.
Oh really?
All of them.
My
And-
son is a Libra.
Yeah, and Ricky is my heart.
Ricky.
He's the most handsome, beautiful,
Well,
most amazing.
fun fact, I'm a Libra stellium, so I am all Libra. So literally, like, how do I explain this to people? I'm an air sign, so think of a balloon. So if I don't have Earth,
Yes.
then I'm just like a balloon.
You're all over
fly
the
around.
place.
But if I got a little, I got to have something to
gotta
weigh,
have
your sweetheart.
to weigh me down. Taurus.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, it is
Taurus,
perfect. But
Taurus
also,
men are fantastic.
but also, it's important for me to understand why, like, you know, literally grounding myself. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like walking barefoot, being in, like, as
We were
a,
talking about that the
Yes.
other day
as
at
an air
the
sign,
Hazel
you have
Dickens
to,
thing.
you have to kind of like, or whatever your sign is. You know what I mean? There's components
Right.
of nature that will enhance you. You know
And
what I mean?
speak to
Like,
you. Fire for me is very spiritual, and I spent an entire summer sitting around a fire, just thinking positive thoughts, and changed my whole life.
whoa.
And when that happened, that's when my husband kind of side-eyed me, like, okay, so maybe there is something to that, you know. But the reality is that we are co-creators in our experience
Absolutely.
here. And quantum physics is
Absolutely.
backing that up at every turn. And to quote Sabrina, sweetheart, wherever you are,
No, Sam.
it's magic.
Oh,
There is magic happening right now, and I think that the magic is that veil is being pulled back. The separation that we've created, while the technology drove us apart at the beginning, I feel like we're finding our way back to each other through these pieces. But we have to create that space.
Yes.
We have to create the conversation. We have to change the narrative.
And you're not going to get it. I don't care how many TikToks you watch.
No, ma'am.
You know, it really is about, and this is why we are in, I mean, like, we're blessed in the sense of, like, we're constantly in the color green. Like, literally just the landscape that we move in feeds our cells, right?
Yeah.
And we are so fortunate to be able to just, like, I can go to a waterfall right now. I can go
Yes.
stick my feet in
Yes.
a creek. I can access things, you know, instantly, and we have to reconnect with that because that's where the answers are. I don't have the answers. I don't know what we're supposed to do with a, you know, 95, 97%, 99%, you know, Republican legislature or all of these things. Like, I don't have the answers.
Right. Yeah.
But I know that, you know, the most important thing is for us to all be sovereign in ourselves and with our families and our communities. And that's really where we start.
Yeah.
And I think that so many people, there's such a great disconnect. And I think that disconnect is literally the food that we're eating. You know what I mean? Like, the way that we are treating
How we
our
interact
bodies.
with every single thing. We are saturated. We now know that we have particles of plastic in our blood. They are in our men's testicles.
In our brains.
They're in our brains. We have saturated our systems and ourselves with this. But we also have, and the regenerative nature of nature is really amazing. Like,
It is.
when you, and I've said this on Kford, I'm not worried about saving the planet. The planet will go on in some form
Oh,
or
yeah,
shape
it will.
in its beautiful way, as it always has done.
Yep.
As a Dudeist priestess and recently ordained, I've said I don't consecrate anything. The earth is
Congratulations.
consecrate in itself, right? Like,
Yeah, this is the first time we've
I'm
mentioned
announcing
that.
this. Yeah, some
Congratulations.
friends asked me to marry them, so I had to get ordained, and I glanced around and finding two people to vouch for me in any religion is could be done, I'm sure, but I'm not sure I want to go there. So a friend of mine said, well, have you considered Dudism? And I was like, that's dumb. That's Big Lebowski, you know, whatever. Well, I was in my 20s the first time I saw the Big Lebowski, and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Because life hadn't shit on me and kicked me around enough yet.
Then you got
Give it time.
Now I get it.
Now you can marry people.
I get it, and I understand that a tenet of just take it easy and live your best life is something I can espouse. But I also, when they said you can call yourself this, you can do this, you can do these things, it's like some things are sacred in and of themselves, in my view. That's a personal view. The earth is one of them. This is the top of the bottom of the first continent
Yeah.
on the planet.
The top of the bottom, yes.
It's
Yeah.
eroded away. And that's how I think of it. And when you think of ancient and profound, when you should see people's faces when they wrap their head around what I'm saying. It's like all of a sudden that ground means something. We have lost that.
Yeah.
That ground is not something to be exploited and monetized.
Right.
That ground is our life-giving source. And when we reset our paradigm is when things will start to click back into place. We have to do that.
Well, you said it earlier when we were just in here. You were setting up, and I was, you know, cooking some dinner, and we were talking, and you said we're not supposed to live like this.
We're not. I'm a firm believer in that.
And that is so true. You know, and this is called almost heaven. You know what I mean? Like we're so close.
We're so there. We're just like we're so close that we just barely miss it.
Yeah, and we miss it big time. You know what I mean?
do.
What do you wish for this state?
Well,
Or Appalachia. Let me just say Appalachia because I think it's
well, you know, when
broader
I talk
than
about
these
Appalachia,
lines.
I really just mean Central Appalachia. I don't know about that northern southern part. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. our part of Appalachia.
yeah, it's Central Appalachia because it's definitely more. You know what I mean? It's culturally very much the same. I go to Eastern Kentucky.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
North
same
Carolina, Western North
accent,
Carolina,
You know what I mean?
yes.
Like
Yeah,
things
this
like
area,
that.
this region.
Yeah, Central Appalachia. I mean, you know, my wish is that we would see ourselves in the archetype of the world and really understand that, you know, we are no different than other rural places across the country, no different than other rural spaces in other countries, right? And find unity in that we are special. But we are not that special. And I think sometimes our brains are kind of like, you know, yeah, we're special and these are our problems and blah, 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 blah. But no, these are the same. You know, I was just reading about, you know, people trying to kick out Starlink from, you know, rural Africa. You know what I mean? Like, you know, just like, we have so many of the same problems, so many of the same challenges, and I just want Appalachia to see ourselves in the archetype of the world and the universe. And I think that if we can see ourselves there, then we have comrades, we have other people. We're not just trying to solve our problems because we are this destitute people that got, you know what I mean, like
Right.
erasure through, you know, industry and, you know, all of these things. This is a spirit and an energy that's running through our planet, and we are not solo dolo in it. And so I think that would also help so many people, especially in a place like Appalachia that is 95% white, that doesn't understand the power of immigrants and the things that we really need to be profitable and to, you
Yes.
know, run society. And so I think we are very limited sometimes in that. And I think Central Appalachian and West Virginians finding a connection throughout other communities across the globe, and making those connections, because what do I want for our children? I want them to see the world and come home.
Exactly.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go see the world and come home, and then you see the gold.
Yeah.
You see the gold here, and they are the gold. You know, that future generation. But I tell my son that all the time. Go. You need to go see what's out there, because there's so much beauty in so many places, and go to places where you feel vibration from the land, like out
Yep.
west in the Chaco Desert and the Chaco Canyon, where it's like,
Well, I have my magic spots. Hopefully I'm finding a few magic spots down here in Princeton, but you know, I always go to the New River Gorge. It's ancient.
yes.
And there's like pterodactyls that fly down there.
I need to take you to the top of Friesland.
Yes.
Take me everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going foraging. We're going to go see the
Okay.
mountain.
We're going to
doing all
get her
that
with
stuff.
Laura Lee.
My sister, you're gonna love my
Okay.
sister. She's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, we got a new sister.
We do, and we only have a few more minutes, so I want to
Yeah.
also just talk about what do you have in store. So you mentioned your paper. What is the name of your
Black
paper?
by God, Black
Yep.
by God, the West Virginian. You can find us at blackbygod.org. We're also on Blue Sky. We're on Facebook. We've got Instagram, YouTube, a little TikTok.
I call it Tiki Talk too.
And I'm so proud of this little paper. We're going into our 5th year. I'm so excited to announce that we finally have subscriptions, so you can get BBG delivered every month to your house. It's a $40 subscription, which is kind of crazy, but that's what I need.
I'll take 2.
Yeah.
I'll take 2.
Take them, yeah,
Yeah.
and sign up. So you know, we've been hit pretty hard with the transition, in terms of people being scared of how to distribute their grant money, blah 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 blah. I mean, the name is Black by God, the West Virginian, but for your listeners and folks, you can be whatever by God you want to be.
We don't
Italian by
discriminate.
God.
We are West
You can
by
be cranky
God.
by God. You can be whatever you want to be. But I am Black by God, and I'm proud of that. I think that being a Black Mountain person gives me such resilience. It gives me such a framework. It gives me a way of seeing myself through, you know, the challenges, right? And the way that Black folks came into the mountains and built community. And if you really think about it, it's kind of amazing that the Black folks that came out of West Virginia are so successful in the globe. I mean, we're talking about like
yes.
I
T.D.
wanted to-
Jakes. We're
yes.
talking about
Bill
like
Withers.
Bill Withers.
We're
I was gonna
talking
talk about Bill Withers
Katherine
and-
Johnson. Like, if you made it out of West Virginia as a Black person, chances are you might not be like the Bill Withers, but you are doing something
You've
with your
done
life.
well,
You know,
right.
and that's, you know, I laugh, but I'm like, you know, what do all the famous Black people in West Virginia have in common?
They leave.
They left. Yeah.
It's so
but,
true.
But as we know from Bill Withers' song, the unreleased song, Mountain Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Oh,
You know what I
right.
mean? Like, and I think that there is a, if you don't come home, this is why my paper's successful. If you don't come home, you care about home, and you look for authentic ways to keep in touch with home. And for a long time, I think I served that as just a Facebook presence.
Yes.
Just social media. Like, I'm just reporting the news. I'm just kind of
People
giving the
wanna
tea. And then I was able to generate that into Black by God, which I quickly learned. I call it the rings of influence. You know, the core of Black by God is the Black folks in West Virginia, and there's only 65,000.
Oh, wow.
Hoping to get everybody in my portal seems doable. And then the next one is
We'll go out and door knock for you. For sure.
is the journalist community that's all over
Yes.
this country that's kind of curious about what I'm doing. So I have a lot of support there. And then I call this third ring, which is sort of the West Virginia alumni. Right? These are people, or Appalachian, these are people that still care about home. They want to find a way to connect. They support a hometown paper because they trust me. You know what I mean? To kind of like tell what's going on as best that I can. But that's very important. That's still a very much Appalachian cultural value. I want to stay connected to
Those
home.
are the ones that will put more into Appalachia, the ones that have left and still hold it in their heart, you know, and they call it home. They're the ones that will donate and
Yeah, that's
bring
right.
money
That's where
in,
and they got a little bit of money because they left the state. So
and
Their
they will
markets are
do what
better.
they can. They've donated water. We have that issue going on in Wyoming County. We were banging the drum trying to get local churches to give us water donations. And we were met with, friction. And the people that would donate were the ones that were no longer living here.
that alumni is so powerful, and I didn't really realize that.
very
You know what I
much.
mean? Until I started seeing like who was writing checks and who was supporting and who was doing this, and so it's a powerful resource, and I wish that we could organize it better, not just for donations, but to really give our kids a chance for more meaningful internships. I mean,
Without doubt,
jobs,
the
I mean,
networking that can
network.
exist
yeah,
beyond.
and nobody's really tapped that.
That's so true. And that ties into our community resource conversation that we had in the last podcast, that we've been in survival mode for so long that we haven't done a good job of cataloging and identifying our
But
resources.
it's also taboo. I was reading in the black paper right before we came here, and what tickled me was that in 1881, June 1st, because that's what I was reading, 1881, in the black newspaper that came out of Parkersburg, West Virginia, they had a whole farmers page, right? And I thought that was cool because I was literally working on our farmers page. And my God. But I believe his name was Cletus. It was like a real cool, like old name.
Right.
Wrote a story that said, basically, don't leave West Virginia, because if you leave, you're just going to bury your parents somewhere you can't get to, and then you're going to have to come home anyway. So come home. So don't leave West Virginia, and recognize that we have sheep, goats, coal, gold, minerals,
Salt,
apples,
water.
oranges, like all the things that we have that is like, we are rich.
That will
In
sustain life.
1881, Cletus was saying, just stay. Don't sell your property. It will pay off. And now we're 100 years later, and I can't think of any other place in America that I would want to be for climate resilience.
Yes.
For the opportunity to grow my own food and have a sovereign life, for peace of mind, right? For
visual beauty.
visual
for,
beauty,
yeah.
you know what I mean? And all of these different assets that we have that, I believe during COVID, a lot of what they call those people, the coaster people, or the fancy people on the coast, or whatever they're called, that a lot of people were buying up property blind in West Virginia.
Yes.
And that's a little disturbing, but also at the same time, this place is so fertile, and we are just literally sitting on, sitting on that moment in time where, if we collectively as people start to invest in our own backyards and in our own food systems and in our own, like, we're going to be fine.
I think
go ahead.
the black gold that I think that we have is not the coal. I think it's the soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you have good rich soil, rich soil is dark and black.
Right.
That's the black gold that we have. And like I was saying, my whole thing, and I've been speaking this into existence for years, is that I want to build a food forest on Wells Palmer Road. And that you got to have that good soil to build that.
And we got it.
And we got it. And that will feed us and other people in years to come.
Let me check. I gotta see.
I'm going to wrap us up. I was going to say.
Let me make sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, and what I was going to say is, in kind of wrapping us up here, what's resonating deeply with me is self-love.
Yeah.
So much of our journey, as I'll speak for myself again, as a woman, is it took me coming into a place. Sorry,
Oh Lord.
It's chaos and beautiful.
That's who we are. That's just how we roll.
I have evolved significantly in the past couple years because I am learning how to love myself.
I think we all have tried. I think
Well,
it's a
last
collective.
year, I saw a thing where it said, when was the last time you wrote yourself a love letter? And I was like, well, that is a good exercise as a writer and as a woman and as in this personal journey. It's the hardest damn thing I've ever done in my life. We pour love out on the other people really easily, but it's really hard to love ourselves. And what I hear when you're talking is, as a state, as a region, as Central Appalachia, this
That book
podcast
that
is
book.
cracking me up. I think we are at a point in time where we need to recognize our worth, exalt it, and it isn't in our minerals and our resources and our numbers on screens.
By God. And it doesn't, and the thing that's interesting about self-love is as I move into a greater love for myself is I really recognize that, maybe we're, that Appalachian value of, let me not put myself first or let me not like toot my own horn and all that stuff. Well, it's ridiculous because, I can only love you, my children, my community, my newspaper, anything as much as I love myself. And I know that concept kind of like, it took me a while to like fold into it.
It's hard
you know
to
what I
get
mean?
that
But
inside of you.
when
right?
I started thinking about the fact that I keep myself or have kind of kept myself in a bit of financial distress, over the years, right? And that is a form of self-harm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't think we frame things that way because, we and then everybody's kind of in the same boat with us and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you got it. It's about self-love. And that's what you have to wake up and do every day because you can't give what you don't have.
That's exactly right. And we as a region and as a state need to do the same thing. We need to recognize our worth and love what we have and not try to escape it. Go see the world.
Yeah.
But not because you're trying to leave. You got to get away. You got to...
Because you'll find yourself.
better, right?
Yeah. You won't find something better. You'll find pieces of yourself.
Correct.
All over this globe.
The mountains will keep calling you back. Trust me.
Yep. See you soon.
Can we talk again?
Absolutely.
Please.
You were so much fun, and we
I
have
know,
limited
I
time
know.
today.
I'll
But
be a regular guest.
Please.
I would love that because I think as things happen in our communities, let's circle back and talk about them and talk about historically as organizers what we bring, what we know, and some ideas of how to move forward. And then
We're going to talk about
I'd love
agricultural
to.
stuff too.
I want to
do
go to
it.
your Sweetheart's Farm.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to have berry picking day, so I'll make sure you all can announce that soon in July. Okay.
Do you see how excited? Like we're literally like
and we can do a little bit of foraging and all stuff. So we'll be hooking down.
Thank you, Crystal.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
It's on and popping. Maybe some popcorn. We'll do good.
But thank you. I really appreciate you coming and
thank
being
you.
on this and letting us into your home to do this. And yes, come back.
More to
anytime.
come.
All right.
Y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Appalachian Living is sponsored in part by Wade Law Firm, PLLC. Sage Stitch Finance Corporation, representing wisdom and mending what we already have, providing gap funds for resilient renovations.
Appalachian Living is also brought to you by Hope Money Coaching, rescuing you from financial chaos and leading you to a path of financial wellness. Minimalist Gym, helping men and women navigate their health and fitness without restrictive fad diets.